You ever see a point in tennis that literally stops the tennis world in its tracks? Not a long rally, not an insane giveaway winner. A sound? That's what happened at the 2026 Australian Open. Picture it. Australian Open semifinal. Sabalenka versus Svitolina. The pressure is immense. The world's watching, and poof, a hindrance call on a grunt. Yes, that's right, a grunt. As soon as chair umpire Louise Engzell points at Aryna Sabalenka and calls hindrance, the stadium goes silent, except the echo of disbelief. And in that silence, something curious happens. Both Sabalenka and Svitolina have the same question in their eyes. Did that really just happen? Pause that thought, because I promise we're going to unpack every layer of this moment. By the end of this video, you'll understand why it's controversial, why fans are split, and most importantly, whether this call was actually fair. Stay with me. Let's rewind a little. Sabalenka, the reigning world number one, known for her sheer power and uncompromising intensity, she walks onto Rod Laver Arena, eyes blazing. Across the net stands Aryna Sabalenka, calm, composed, calculating. Two warriors. This is not just a semi-final. This is psychological warfare. The match begins. Sabalenka takes the first set 6-2, flexing her muscles early. Then in the second set at 2-1, something happens that no one watching expected. Sabalenka hits a ball in the fourth game. A clean rally, nothing theatrical. She follows through with her signature grunt, which fans and commentators have talked about for years. But this time, the grunt isn't just a grunt. It's extended, and Engzell makes the call. Hindrance. Just like that, the point is awarded to Svitolina. Sabalenka is stunned. She immediately asks for a video review. And listen, this is the part that had even seasoned tennis analysts scratching their heads. After the review, Engzell tells her the call stands, not because of the usual procedural elements, but because the umpire judged that Sabalenka made an extra sound on top of her normal grunt, and that this sound occurred in the middle of the point, that, according to the rulebook, constituted deliberate hindrance. Here's the twist. Sabalenka already grunts loudly. That's not new, but this asterisk extra syllable, that's what the umpire pointed to. Let that sink in. A golfer gets penalized for too much swing noise? I mean, come on. A football player gets flagged for crowd noise? It doesn't happen. But in tennis, this moment was like nothing we'd seen. Already fans were erupting online. Some said, finally, someone called it. Others said this was a case of targeting Sabalenka's natural rhythm. And trust me, we're going to break down both sides. But first, before we go deeper, I want you to start thinking, did that call change the match? Did it tilt the mental balance? And most importantly, was it even justified? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because this is one the community is absolutely divided on. Why this moment matters. This wasn't just a hindrance call. It was something that hit at the heart of tennis's unwritten culture. Tennis players grunt, some more than others. It's part of their release, a release of energy, focus, emotion. Pick any elite player. Some grunt quietly, some grunt loudly. It's normal. It's part of the modern game. But here's where the line blurs. At what point does noise become a hindrance? The rules say that if a player purposely distracts their opponent by shouting, stomping, or otherwise forcibly interfering with play, that's a hindrance. But that's supposed to be intentional distraction, like mimicking a scream only when the opponent's about to hit the ball. In Sabalenka's case, she's hitting the ball, completed her stroke, and then comes the sound. In most matches, and I mean dozens, hundreds, nobody has ever been penalized for that. So when Engzell made the call, wow, did it suddenly make everyone reassess the entire grunt discussion? And this is where the drama explodes. Because right after the call, Svitolina doesn't have any visible reaction. She stays professional. But the tension in the arena? You could cut it with a racket string. And Sabalenka, typically ferocious and fiery, suddenly has to refocus not just on her opponent, but on the fact that she just lost a point not because she misplayed, but because of the sound she made. That's a different kind of battlefield. The video review, was it really fair? Let's talk about the video review, because fans argue endlessly about this. Sabalenka challenges the hindrance call. She thinks reviewing the video will clear her, that once everyone sees how normal the sequence looked, the call will be overturned. Instead, the call stands. Now, Engzell explains that Sabalenka added an extra sound, and that makes it deliberate hindrance. Here's where tennis purists and logic lovers clash. Side A, this was absolutely fair. There's a reason the rule exists. Loud noises that hinder opponent timing are unfair. Side B, this was subjective. Sabalenka grunts with every shot. You can't suddenly judge her mid-match for something she always does. So who's right? Look at it like this. Imagine if a tennis player yawns right as the opponent hits the ball, and it unnerves them. That technically could be a distraction, but would an umpire stop play for it? Probably not. Now replace that yawn with Sabalenka's grunt. Suddenly it's a hindrance. Now replace that with literally any other noise a player might make, regardless of how normal or irregular. And you start to realize this call wasn't just a technical enforcement. It was a judgment call. And judgment calls always spark controversy. Fan reactions, and they're wild. I scoured social media for reactions, so you don't have to. And fans did not hold back. One fan wrote, "The bottom line, the grunt of Sabalenka, is a hindrance. It carries on when the ball is on the opponent's side of the net." This was a correct call. Another comment said, "Yes, Sabalenka, all the noises you make during matches are a hindrance. You don't make normal sounds." And then this one is spicy. Umpire finally calling out Sabalenka's extra. UHOI grunt midpoint faced with tears of joy hindrance, review denied. About time someone addressed those noises. Let's unpack that reaction. Notice how some fans are critical of Sabalenka's grunting in general, not the specific moment. That's the trap many people fall into. They're not discussing the rule. They're discussing their opinion of Sabalenka. That's human behavior. We react emotionally first, logically later. But tennis umpires are supposed to act logically first, emotionally never. So when fans bring up years of noise and frustration, they're actually revealing something deeper. A wrestling of bias and expectation. Sabalenka isn't just a player anymore. She's a persona. And people project opinions onto that persona. That's why the reactions are all over the place. How this shifted the match. At the time of this call, Sabalenka was leading the second set 2-1. Momentum was hers. A moment like this can be a momentum drain. Not just a point loss, a mental shift. Tennis is 90% mental. Anyone who tells you different has never played a pressure point. Suddenly, Sabalenka has to reset. She has to control her breath. She has to tell herself, that call is not the battle you want to fight. Meanwhile, Svitolina, the calm tactician, gets a free point. Free point plus calm head equals psychological advantage. And indeed, while Sabalenka is still at a set lead, that point became a symbolic turning point. Remember, Sabalenka is a 4-time Australian Open finalist. She's no stranger to drama. But this was a foot fault, was an injury, was an unforced error. It was sound. That's something players don't train for. The rulebook, what it actually says. Let's get technical, just for a moment, because this is where the heart of the debate lies. The hindrance rule exists to prevent intentional distractions. If I'm calling matches and a player deliberately stomps, yells ARGH at the exact moment the opponent is going for a winner, that's interference. But what the rule doesn't clearly define, and here's the heart of this debate, is whether a habitual noise that the opponent is already accustomed to should count as interference. In other words, Sabalenka's grunt is part of her tennis identity. It's been there for years. Her opponents train with it. They anticipate it. And yet, in one split second, it became hindrance. That's why judges and fans alike are arguing. Because written rules can be interpreted in hundreds of ways. What this means for the future. Here's the part that's already sending ripples through the tennis community. If this hindrance call stands as a precedent, what happens next? Do players now have to adjust how they grunt? Do we expect umpires to call hindrance more often? Does the ADP and WTA need to clarify this rule? I can tell you this much. Coaches are going to watch this moment on loop. Fans will quote it. Analysts will debate it. And Sabalenka? She's not going to forget this. There's also a deeper cultural shift at play. Tennis is obsessed with tradition. But at the same time, it's evolving. Power, speed, athleticism, they all push the game forward. But sound? That's intangible. And yet, here we are, discussing whether vocal expression can be regulated. My honest take. I'm going to be real with you, and I want you to be honest in the comments too. I think the call was technically arguable, but practically unfair. Here's why. Sabalenka's grunt hasn't changed mid-match. She just hit a ball and made her sound. No additional gesture, no intentional mockery, no screaming towards Svitolina. It was part of her swing rhythm. For the umpire to single out one syllable and say that became a hindrance, that's subjective. That's like saying a sprinter's shout at the finish line distracted someone in another lane. Rules exist to prevent intentional interference. They don't exist to police habitual behavior that has become part of a player's style, unless it's truly being weaponized. This wasn't weaponized. It was interpreted that way. Maybe another umpire would have seen it differently. Maybe another official would have let it go. That's why this moment is going to be talked about for years. Rumor time. Okay, here's where it gets even more interesting, and I need you to take this as rumor, not confirmed. There's word circulating in the players' village that some members of the officiating circle have privately expressed frustration with excessive grunting across the tour, and that this moment was possibly seen as an opportunity to set a precedent. Again, rumor, nothing official. But if there's even a kernel of truth to this, we might be witnessing not just a match moment, but an ideological shift in how tennis wants to be presented to global audiences. And if such a shift happens, it could impact younger players coming up, coaching styles, even how crowds react. I didn't make this rumor up. I'm reporting what people in the corridors are whispering. Take it as food for thought, and what Svitolina thinks. Here's another fact that's been underplayed. Aryna Sabalenka didn't celebrate the hindrance point with wild enthusiasm. Why? Because she didn't want the story to be about that. She wanted it to be about tennis. Pure tennis. Svitolina has been around long enough to know that drama doesn't define a champion. Performance does. And to her credit, she kept her nerve. So while Sabalenka was fighting two battles, opponent plus controversy, Svitolina was strategically laser-focused. That's the kind of veteran mentality that wins matches. A call that echoes beyond Melbourne. The significance of this moment isn't confined to one match, one tournament, or one player. It echoes into the philosophy of tennis itself. In a sport where sound is a byproduct of effort, where grunt, breath, grunt again are part of physical release, suddenly policing that is like policing how loud a batter exhales in baseball. Tennis has always balanced finesse and ferocity. But this was policing expression. That's why people care so much. Because tennis isn't just about ball and net. It's about identity. And Sabalenka's identity is powerful, intense, unabashed. If that's now contestable, well, the sport just shifted. Final thoughts before the wrap. So let's recap what we've learned. A hindrance call was issued on a grunt. Unprecedented at this level. The video review upheld the call, making it binding. Fans are split. Some say it was justified, others call it a double standard. Sabalenka lost the point, not because of a shot she missed, but because of a sound she made. Rumors swirl that officials internally want to curb excessive grunting. Unconfirmed, but intriguing. And now the tennis world will debate whether this moment was a one-off or a new chapter. And here's the real question. The one I want your answer on. Do you think this hindrance call will change how players express themselves on court, especially grunting? Or was this just an isolated moment that won't matter long term? Type your answer in the comments. I want to see a real discussion. If you love deep, honest, and fan-first analysis of tennis's biggest moments, then you're in the right place. I'm here to break it down with energy, passion, and context you won't get anywhere else. Hit subscribe, join the Tennis IQ community, and let's keep talking tennis, not just scores. Stay sharp, stay curious, stay Tennis IQ.